Today's presentation is evolutions of vibe coding, which is something new. It's kind of crazy we have so many evolutions, but we're going to hear all about it. Sean is actually an officer for the Roanoke user group. He's a software engineer with a passion for continuous learning and community building. He began his tech journey in 2008, getting his foundation in IT certifications. Entered the industry in 2012 with PBS, that's the Public Broadcast Service, and has been building software since 2018. Thank you very much, Sean.
Okay. Well, thank you. All right, now, first thing I need to go over is why am I wearing this tie? Why am I wearing the tacky tie? If you can't see the back, it's a like a 86 computer with the mouse and the mouse pad. Very cheesy. And I promised my uncle that I would wear it because I had to borrow some clothes from him this past weekend. And so he went to his closet and we went through all his ties, and then he gave me this one and he's like, and make sure you wear it. I chose it for you. But no, I'm actually not going to wear it the rest of the night because that would just
so very late
not work.
1900s.
Let's get a picture, right? So you could show them, saying like, look, I wore it.
So, all right. So, yes, evolutions of vibe coding. And why evolutions? It's because it really is moving faster than, certainly faster than I thought. I think faster than most of us have thought, right? Probably more than any of us have thought. But this is also a two-part talk. So first, I will be going over the evolutions of vibe coding, but I'm also going to be going through a practical use of vibe coding. Back in, I think, March, I was like, hey, there are all these vibe coding tools. And I was looking at our website, which had not been updated since 2020. And I was like, let's see what vibe coding can do to get us to that next step, right? And so a little bit about me. I'm also a Hokie. I graduated in 2004. My bachelor's was not in computer science. It was actually in business with a specialization in hospitality and tourism. So I worked for Hyatt for a few years and then a senior living home. And then, yes, in 2008, I started getting my IT certifications. And then, yes, I have done the non-computer science degree path. So I've done General Assembly, Free Code Camp, Udemy, Educative, and as so many people have coined the term tutorial hell, I found out what that's like. I've been a government contractor since 2015, so I've worked for basically all of the big names, Lockheed Martin, Leidos, Booz Allen Hamilton, which is actually where I currently work. I have also worked for several agencies, Congress, the Navy, Army, Air Force, Department of Labor, and the Government Services Administration. So I do not use any of these tools at work because the government does not allow us to use any of these tools unless specifically contracted. So everything that I do is really on the side or personal experimentation. But, you know, since, actually, before I get into that, so yes, I have a background in JavaScript, Node.js. That's really my first programming language that I learned. So I have a preference for React. I've been getting into Python and Java, PHP. And then, of course, I've worked with several of the different RDBMSs. And then I would say within the past couple years, definitely been working a lot more with Docker, Kubernetes. And then, of course, I actually started out with a certification for the Developer Associate for AWS back in 2020. That expired, and I had never even worked in the cloud, but now, of course, I have continued working in the cloud as well as in Azure and DigitalOcean. I do that a lot for my personal projects. And then, of course, the dreaded Atlassian suite. So, I have had to build some Jira templates, and I know enough to know that I never want to work or do that kind of development again. So why are we here tonight? AI is here. Shouldn't we be able to have AI do all our work for us? Of course, we in the software development community, we do not want that. All the CEOs of the of the AI companies, yes, that's what they want. That's what they want everybody to think, so that they can purchase the $200 a month subscriptions. But I was, when they were saying this is the software developer job killer, I was like, well, I better get an early start. So I did. I signed up for the ChatGPT Plus when that came out. I've tried Bolt.new, Replit. There's some new ones. Kira, Claude Code, and yes, that middle line, will AI take over my job? Now, I would like to say that I could definitely say no to that, but I really don't know. These are very interesting times. We have seen where, there are layoffs across the board, and the CEO will make it sound like it's something where, this is a good thing because now we get to allocate money towards making things better and faster for people. But they never talk about how many people are now left searching for jobs. And but we do need to always make sure that humans are in the loop. The one thing that I have found, and I'm sure other people have found as well, and definitely people are saying, keeping humans in the loop is a necessity. There is no blindly follow, blindly trust what AI is giving us. We do need to, trust but verify. But the skills that we need to adapt to, where typically I was just a full stack developer, now we're talking about learning prompt engineering. I like to call it AI supervision, vibe coding, AI supervision. Some people might say AI babysitting. I found that my need to know software architecture and system architecture has definitely advanced. And I put DevSecOps there because one thing that AI does not do is fill in the gaps. So where normally DevOps is just your portmanteau of development and operations, we really do need to make sure that we add security in there, because AI is not going to do the most secure code unless you've specifically asked for it. So yeah, also site reliability engineering, and that means that, you know, if you have SRE experience, that's great. I don't. I've been learning that now I need to write functions and tools that can help me along the path of being that SRE. And then, you know, I have it in the bottom right corner because do you have to do all the jobs? No. But graphics design, product design, product management, you know, now I certainly find that if you're working with the person who makes the money decisions, they want a quick answer. Hey, can we do this? You have to be able to answer them, and hopefully you know how to say, that's a great question, let me get back to you. You don't always have that luxury though, right? So we do need to sometimes take that larger question and put that into our prompt. So going back to the prompt engineering, because the more we tell the AI up front, the more planning we do up front, the better our conversation and building process with the AI, the better that we'll get. Now, yes, November 30th, 2022, that is when ChatGPT, OpenAI released GPT-4. And I looked up on layoffs, FYI, and there have actually been 359,776 jobs that have been laid off. Now, are all of these related to AI specifically? No. But I think it is interesting to see, like, this was, in fact, a week ago that I took that statistic, and it may have grown since then. Now, do I want to scare you? No. But I do want to just ground you in having some sorts of skepticism about, you know, is vibe coding the way of the future? Sort of, right? It is definitely something that gets used all over the place, but you'll also find that there are a lot of systems and products that are, you know, under lock and key that you don't necessarily want to allow your AI to have any inference or introspection on. But my current project right now, I'm on a AI ML project, and who's the product manager? Machine learning data scientist is the project manager now. Sorry, that doesn't make sense to me. You know, I would much prefer to have a project manager or a scrum manager who is making sure that we're all on track and that team members are working together or communicating to the customers. That being said, I think, you know, this is not the everyday scenario. This is not how it will be for everybody. But I do think that we do need to just be conscious of some of the things that are going on these days. And whose responsibility is it to fill in the blank? And then I've also helped plan some internal hackathons. We did have an AI hackathon, and quite honestly, it was just shocking to see people who had never coded before, and they were able to use tools like GitHub Copilot and Amazon Q, and then actually build working websites. And in fact, I worked with people on my team who worked on closed systems where you waited to get permission to do things. And those people actually ended up being a liability on my team because they didn't know how to just go ahead and ask Google, go ahead and ask ChatGPT, go ahead and ask GitHub Copilot how to do things. You got a question?
You said Amazon Q. What is Amazon Q?
Amazon Q is, it's basically Amazon AWS's version of GitHub Copilot. It is a tool that integrates with AWS. So infrastructure engineers and DevOps engineers, cloud engineers can use that from within their AWS session and either spin up or troubleshoot things that are either in flight or, you know, in the build process.
Like in the AWS console?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a pane that basically just like ChatGPT or Copilot, it'll be on the right side of your browser window. I actually haven't worked much with Amazon Q. I just know that it's out there and available. I did work with AWS Bedrock. We did some trial runs with that.
And what's Amazon Bedrock?
So AWS Bedrock is basically a platform that will work with different language learning models, LLMs, to, you know, you can either train off of data, you train off of your knowledge bases, and then use that trained AI as a chatbot. That's one aspect of it. My team, we took some data down from an open data website and just, you know, parsed the files down, fed it to Bedrock, and then hooked it up to the chatbot, and we were able to actually get some reasonable answers. One thing that I've learned about all this is that data is king, and it really does take a lot of data to get a knowledgeable chatbot. So some newish concepts that, you know, you may have heard of, you probably have already heard of and are not new. I'm just saying new-ish. So I follow what's going on in Hacker News, newsbycombinator.com, archive.org, etc. You know, in the past year, there have been so many advances in LLMs, large language models, that it's just given me a quicker way to understand what AI LLMs can do. And, you know, I tricked you all here tonight, by the way.
Mhm.
I put a catchphrase, I put clickbait in the title of the presentation. Vibe coding is definitely one of those terms. The next term, of course, is spec-driven development, which is where it's essentially still vibe coding, but you're really creating sort of guardrails and documents for the vibe coding AI to go off of and keep your long-term development in a more structured pattern. So, you know, you also hear a lot of these terms thrown around: Copilot, AI teammate or your AI assistant. You know, one of the things that I like to do is, as I was, you know, on my journey here, I was like, okay, I would get a assignment at work, and I would like, okay, how do I do this? You know, one way is to Google, look up the documentation, go to Stack Overflow, which it actually is a great way to do things. I'm not knocking that. In fact, I still do that because you cannot rely completely on AI giving you all the answers. However, it is a great launch point. There have been several tasks where I will create these MVP toy apps as the starting point to then take what I learned in that toy app and then take it to the existing legacy code base where I'm not going to just open GitHub Copilot right on that repo. That being said, I think we are at a point in the evolution where it is something that's definitely in the fine print. There was a time where people didn't know if GitHub Copilot or ChatGPT was training off of the code you feed it, and it actually does not train specifically off of those chat sessions. However, in my discovery, I have seen some conversations by companies like Windsurf and Cursor and OpenAI about then saving those conversations and then throwing them into a trained large, you know, what do they call that? Reinforcement learning model where they take those conversations and then say, okay, now what do people want from AI, right? So not a definite answer, but that's just my opinion on it. But, you know, as I said, trust but verify. I might be, you know, biased because I work at a government consulting agency. However, I think it's definitely a very good practice to, you know, make sure that the responses from the AI are actually correct. In fact, actually, funny story, my girlfriend was, you know, asking ChatGPT some health questions, and she asked it to draw a diagram of the internal organs and body parts. It turned back a drawing with the liver in the armpit, then another liver in her neck, and then the other armpit had a stomach, and then there were 2 kidneys right on top of each other, and I mean, it was just the worst.
Specify it was a human from Earth?
Much more thing than the other colleagues.
Yeah, I mean, somewhere maybe.
And this was actually just last week. So I mean,
Okay, I'm curious now. What model?
you know, whatever the free ChatGPT
Okay.
had. So
Still
I'm
4?
guessing it was probably GPT-5 or GPT-4o mini, but you know, it was on her phone. She just sent me the picture. Verify.
How would you know?
Well, I just hope that you're not putting your food in your arm.
You found out, Toga.
So I gotta ask, so do you actually, you said verify all the output. Do you actually go through and read all the output? Do you I mean, that's the controversial question, of course.
Yeah,
Some people like, you have to make sure every dot, every I, every dot you should read. But I see a lot of people, parts of sites that don't matter that much, they don't even bother reading it if it works right, so.
so I was gonna get into that a little bit later, but basically, write your tests. Write your tests for those things that you need to be accurate so that your tests can be that thing which determines is it right or not. And also note, I mean, you still, if you're a software developer, you're still on the hook for knowing what's in your code. So you can't just, build something up and merge it in and then not know what's going to be in production. You might have some interesting one-on-ones. So I wanted to show you, what am I doing on time? So I wanted to show you just a couple of the toy apps that I made. Yeah, so this is just one of them. I was actually with one of the members here. We were at Coding Coffee. Was it last week? A couple weeks ago. And Harrison said that he was working on a grocery list, right? iOS app. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Let's use Warp and see if we can vibe code a grocery list app. And so if we npm run iOS. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole live session of, how we got to where we are, but basically over the course of an hour, we got to everything except for actually getting the app to load in the simulator. But now, I found out after I got back that I just needed this CocoaPods dependency package. But now, I did not code any of this. AI did it all. And we have a basic working iOS app. And I think that's amazing. I don't know how to code iOS apps. I have actually tried to do some React Native stuff in the past, but certainly nothing as
Is it a React Native app or is it?
Yeah, so this is a React Native app. So, and once again, this is definitely something that's basic, but it was able to do it all in the space of a little bit more than an hour. I remember I used to take staycations to go through and learn my Android phone app book. And I got to maybe the first view by the end of the week. So 1 hour was certainly faster than flipping open a book and going through that.
What did you use to create this?
I used Warp, which is it's a terminal app that it integrates. It has AI agents that can do the coding similar to how Claude Code or Gemini CLI or OpenAI Codex work.
Why did you pick Warp?
Well, one, because I didn't want to sign up for the Claude Code subscription. Warp AI is a free or a freemium tool. And even with that free subscription, I was able to use Claude Sonnet 4. And so that's, if you're asking which LLM used to create that mobile app, that was that. But, okay, so let's get back to the dual part, right? So apologies to the longstanding members of the meetup. No, I will say that, for a static website, what we had was okay, right? We have a website. It has a menu, right? It has information about the officers, the sponsors, the events. Well, it used to. It also used to have the current board members. Tolga Belchi, still the president, right? Alex McHale, still here. Anyway, so, and, our sponsors changed.
No longer here.
Yeah. So, I mean, it needed some updating, right?
Well, darn Meetup changed their API and broke our dynamic integration. So that's the reason for the loading or whatever it says.
Right. And I mean, and that it's, for meetups, it's actually a common issue where, a team member who worked on the website previously leaves and goes to a different job, different state. All those keys that they had, we no longer have. So also, this whole click to scroll thing, it's nice, but when you have to scroll up to go to each button and then go back up, gets a little repetitive. So as a person who has been working on the front end for the past, 7 years, I'm like, okay, things we can do, it's okay. Let's get back to what's going on. Okay. So let's recap, right? So, all right, so there's some revamping we need to do. So let's start it from a conversation standpoint, right? We'll start with the prompt. And the prompt is, I need to update the website for the Roanoke Valley.net user group to make it a modern and appealing website for 2025. The goal is to enhance user engagement and attract potential community members, as outlined in the provided research report. Before offering any code solution, please ensure the following requirements and considerations from the report are addressed in your approach. And so those considerations were having the content updated and having accurate information, having a modern design and visual appeal, having an enhanced user experience, having community engagement features, having a content strategy that was engaging, and then making sure that the website functionality was not only working, but also like appropriate to the times. There have been some browser APIs that have really enhanced and advanced. But, you know, being a front end guy, I was like, we also got to make sure that there's accessibility is covered. And let's make sure that we're using call to action. Right? Now, anybody who's done front end work or any UI work will know that call to action just means a button. But a button that doesn't actually have a specific purpose is not necessarily a call to action. And then the technical considerations were, okay, I have, you know, how am I going to make sure that this website gets deployed? I don't have any of the API keys anymore. So went to Google Gemini, and we're gonna actually see what we get here. All right, so there's my prompt, right? I need to update the website, yada, yada. So here's where I sort of, you know, read a little blurb about each one of those 9 bullet points. And we can see, like, you know, for modern design and visual appeal, you know, here's the requirement. It should incorporate modern web design trends. Here are the considerations. It needs to be mobile first, responsive. It should be clean and uncluttered. And, you know, let's see if we can add some subtle animations. So, you know, fast forward. So we have community engagement features. We have all of this. This is all of my big, long prompts. And so it sort of does a, you know, okay, this is what you sent to me, and this is my reaction to it, basically. This is AI's reaction to what I sent. And then it does start talking about, you know, community engagement and engaging content. And it also, like, started talking about some ideas: search functionality, contact options, newsletter sign up for a call to action. Okay, cool. We're getting there. I'm liking some of the things that it's giving me. But this is still its initial review of my prompt. Then the technical considerations and the tech stack. You know, it off the bat, it was going off of my experience, and I was like, okay, well, I'm a React developer, so let's use Next.js or Gatsby. And then we could do a back-end CMS like Sanity or Strappy. Database, we don't really need a database because it's just a static site. If we needed to, you know, it's a consideration. Then, you know, it also went into the high-level structure, the page structure. We have our events page, our blog page, sponsors page, etc. Then, of course, the proverbial footer. So, and then it even gave me this video by rv.nug, which I thought was funny. But I am not a .NET developer, though, so I didn't even take a look at that. Once again, if you haven't heard it before, we are sponsored by the .NET Foundation, and we're very happy for that sponsoring. They, you know, they pay for our meetup page, and you know, every once in a while we'll have a member from the .NET Foundation come out and give us a tech talk. Kevin Griffin has been out here a few times. But we really do like to stay tech agnostic. So, you know, you can do COBOL, you can do Elixir, you can do Rust. We're, you know, we accept you, whatever you like.
Maybe not the COBOL part. That
In the last
We actually-
conference we went to, there was a whole session on COBOL.
Really?
Yeah.
It'll never go away. No.
In fact, it was funny because the talk was about how COBOL was really the perfect language.
How old was the presenter?
Very old. They had white hair.
Hey, careful.
I have white hair too, though, so. All right, let's see. So, all right, so we're just, right now, we're still getting through the spout back. And the, AI is trying to understand what we want. And okay. So then Gemini says, okay, well, here's the plan, right? Here's what we can do. And I can even create a report for you. I'm like, great, I'd love to read your report, right? That's work that I don't have to be doing. And so it goes and creates this report. And by the way, if I click on more, we can see that it summarized all the different points. It, where was it? It's got a lot of stuff in here. I mean, we're 1.2, right? So it's like we have a statement of work that we got from Google Gemini. That's a lot. I can be honest with you, I did not read through all of this.
I was gonna ask that.
How long did it take to generate this though?
It took about 15 minutes.
Okay.
And what I'm trying to check out is if it'll show, no, okay, so it's not showing. So it actually showed me all the different websites that it researched, and there were like 62 websites that it researched. That would definitely be something that would take me several months. So that's cool.
Yeah.
But then what I ended up doing is I took this report and then I had the conversation with Google Gemini, and then I said, great, thank you for this report. Now give me a prompt so that I can start coding based off of this research report. And so I created, let's see if this is the, no, that's not the right one. So I went into Cursor, and yes, I did buy Cursor. I ended up buying the year subscription, so I saved $4 a month because normally it's $20 a month. But I took that prompt and I put it, where did I put it? Well, I ended up refactoring and I put it into Migration 2025. So RBNUG 2025 migration plan. This was my starting document for how to go along. Now, as you can see here, I actually have a whole document system for all the different features. I do recommend that if you are doing the vibe coding, you might find that AI itself will generate a lot of documents. And so you might want to actually have that in a specific folder and then just let, down in the context button, you can tell it either you can add new docs or you can have it use API documentation as context for your prompt. All right, so just to run through this really quick. So there was the initial setup. we wanted to migrate our .NET C# application to a React Vite app. So, you know, we have some task items here. Let's update the configuration. And then, so previously we were using Circle CI. I did not have the API key for that. None of us did. So I was like, well, I know GitHub. I know GitHub Actions. Pardon me, I'm not a pro with GitHub Actions, but I knew that we could probably use GitHub Actions as our CI. So let's create those YAML workflow files. And then actually one of the things I ended up doing is, you know, I said that this is a static site. I don't want to be hosting a backend. So I actually just ended up creating a couple of different GitHub Actions for running a Python script to run Playwright and scrape and get the information that we needed from both meetup.com and youtube.com, and then have those in JSON format files, which we could then locally load into the static site. And then I had GitHub Actions run a nightly run of those workflows, so that instead of doing a API call every time the page was accessed, we're not getting those API rate limits. And then of course there's the workflows of the source control itself. You know, let's have a system where run all our tests in GitHub Action before the PR is merged. Right now, that's sort of simple and standard process. I had never actually written those in GitHub Actions before, so it was, you know, a little new to me to have the AI vibe code that and then troubleshoot it along the way. So let me get back to.
Who did the troubleshooting, you or the AI?
Yeah, I ended up troubleshooting GitHub Actions, right? Because, you know, GitHub Actions has its own runners. I was paying for, so I do pay for GitHub Pro, $10 a month, and then an additional $4 a month for GitHub Copilot, or maybe it's the other way around.
I think it's the other way around.
Yeah, okay, it's $4 for Pro and $10 for GitHub Copilot. But if I reverse engineer all the Git commits and then create the roadmap for you guys, you get this beautiful cascade chart. And what I like about it is that, you know, it actually was pretty, as you say, standard SDLC, right? You have your foundation bootstrap and your linting checks. Then you have your CI/CD and your quality gates. Then after we got our first run going in the CI/CD, then we work on our data automation and our meetup scrapers. And then we worked on the productization, right? Adding in SEO. I added in a feature flag system so that as we have new features, you know, we can determine if we want to do A/B testing, or I just want to be able to show and see what these new features look like without having to rebuild and redeploy. And then, of course, ongoing, you know, yes, working on accessibility, performance, developer experience. Now, if you can see this, it says that we start here in January and then go through, go till about May and then go through June. Well, I don't know where those timetables came from. That might be a hallucination, in fact, because I definitely started this about middle of March, and I had my first draft showing of everything to the RV-NUG officers a week and a half. Now, sorry, technical difficulty. Okay. All right. So, all right. So how do we know which tools to use? Right? Once again, we're going to go through the laundry list of tools out there. So there's Bolt.new, ChatGPT+, Claude AI, GitHub Copilot, which is different from Microsoft Copilot, Cody, Codium, Devin, Cursor, Replit, Olama, Cohere, countless more, right? So you get to pick. The beauty is,
Can you go back? Sorry, I don't want to snapshot the list there. There's a lot. Why is there so many? It's not even all of them, right?
Yeah, it's not in
Are
record.
the slides going to be shared or?
Sorry?
Yeah, we can put the.
yeah,
slides
so,
on.
so we are recording this and it'll be posted up on YouTube eventually. And I did my presentation in Keynote, so it's not in GitHub, but eventually I'll get it up on my GitHub page and share it in the meetup comments. So, but how do we fit this to what's already there, right? Going back to that, we have this existing legacy code. Do we want the AI to learn all of the code that we already have? Or do we want it to just enhance what's already there? Do we want it to do a complete rewrite? And given that I don't know .NET, I said, let's just do a complete rewrite. But where are all the API keys? We don't have them. So what resources did we need? So I say, stick to what you know, then enhance what you don't. So we know that this is going to be a static website, so HTML, JavaScript, CSS, so React. GitHub Pages has long been known to be good at doing static websites. Let's use GitHub Actions for the DevOps, and then Python scripting will be our backend. And then once we get into the tech stack, let's look at, what are the specific tools that we need to be using. And then what is the development workflow that we want to set up. Now, work is always hounding and telling us shift left. So I'm like, okay, this is where I get to be the product manager. I want to have the AI shift left, right? But, still want to make sure that we're automating things, but we have code quality. Those tests that we were talking about, making sure, how do we make sure that we're not, telling lies or have inaccuracies? And then the DevOps integration via GitHub Actions.
Sean, quick question. How much time have you spent just for your mind from the design to that you said, like, okay, this is going to be that technology stack, and how much input did you get from the AI saying, like, well, maybe look at this as an alternative to this?
Yeah. So the Gemini report did talk about different things, right?
Okay.
It did talk about using WordPress as a CMS. It did mention using things like Netlify or Vercel. And I've worked with Vercel in the past on personal projects, and I knew that I did not want to be using that because Vercel has done a great job of finding out how to make people pay more for their services. WordPress, you know, I don't want to be in PHP. No offense to anybody who likes PHP or WordPress. Just not my thing. Yeah, so that Gemini report, it did have recommendations. And in fact, in the first few sessions with the agent, I did end up getting some Netlify configurations. But then I was like, wait a minute, I never specifically asked to put things up in Netlify. And I didn't want to do that, right? That's just one more key to get lost in the mix. We already had the GitHub repo on the public domain. Let's just use that.
So then, did you tell Gemini, like, oh, stop with the Netlify stuff, I don't want to see that anymore? Veered off in a different direction?
Yes.
Okay.
I was wondering if you had any opinion on the low-code platforms that we're seeing, like Framer and Wix and Squarespace and the, you know, that whole genre of tools. It just seems to me that so much is abstracted right now. We don't have to spend even that much time just some of those options. I would love to have your take on that.
Purely subjective question. Great question. I can guarantee that Squarespace has already got their version of AI coding going on. I'm pretty sure that their developers are using AI agents to code and enhance what they've already got. They're probably going to be working on ways to minimize you know, the developer tooling that has to be downloaded. Purely, you know, I shouldn't even have said that, really. But basically, I would say if you're still looking for a simple tool and you're looking for an off-the-shelf tool, go ahead and use Squarespace, Wix, you know, Framer, yeah. So I'm not familiar with Framer. I mean, I've seen the name, but I've never used it. You know, I do know that there's companies like Figma who are really amplifying and ramping up the speed to development, because you can do your tools in Figma, you can do your designs in Figma, and then use AI to both look at the prompt, build the design, and then generate the code. You know, so that's already there.
That is what Framer does. Figma has a Figma to Framer plugin, and all you need is a plugin. You just copy paste your designs from Figma onto your page on Framer, and you have a live website. I mean, that's what prompted me to ask this question, because the app that you showed seemed pretty simple.
So yes, seemed pretty simple. So that's the thing. So anything that you're going to get from those little generation plugins, you're probably going to get a, you know, like I said, a toy app or a starter version that you're still going to need to improve upon. You're still going to need your skills, thank goodness. Although sometimes I want to just be able to say, okay, hey, I told you what to do. Why didn't you do it? That is the crux right? But yeah, okay, so getting back to AI's role. So we're giving it specifications. We are telling it to translate the legacy code. And by the way, I actually did have, I can't remember if it was GitHub Copilot or Cursor. I did actually have the AI read through the code so that I could say, how do you understand, you know, like, what do you understand this code does? So, you know, in GitHub Copilot, they do have an ask mode. I think that's a great read-only way to understand the code if you don't understand it at first glance. But I also know that I think maybe I did use Cursor, and I told Cursor specifically, do not write any code, just read through and tell me what this code does. And then I did use some MCP servers. Cursor has actually gone through a lot of UI enhancements. I'm not going to spend too much time on MCP servers. I just want to give the basic caveat of saying MCP servers can be great, but make sure that if you need to use anything with API keys, your MCP servers or MCP tools may have access to those API keys. So buyer beware. Love the documentation generation. I went through that quickly. And yes, AI is great at doing your boilerplate code. As the whole, you know, all of GitHub.com is what it trained off of to give its boilerplate code, which also means that there's no telling if your code is going to work right away, and there's no telling if it's a best practice way, even if it says it's a best practice. So, but anyway, so I went with Cursor IDE, and I don't know if you guys have heard it, but Andre Karpathy, he's a big AI/ML guy. He's the one who coined vibe coding. I'm not going to bring up that tweet. But what is essential here? What are the challenges? We do need to know how to actually do prompt engineering that gives the LLM the information it needs to get started. Understand that you need to verify the output, and AI has limitations. After this project, by the way, I was like, this is awesome. Let's expand. So I started doing microservices. I still have not found that Cursor or GitHub Copilot they're getting better at working with Docker and microservices, but unless you explicitly give them access to your environmental variable files, your .envs or whatever configuration properties, they're not going to have access to knowing why something's working or not working. So you might get into loops where it just like tries to run, you know, spin everything up, which takes forever, and then spin everything down, which takes forever, and then see what's going on that port. But if you know a little bit of Docker, if you know a little bit of working with these, you know, configurations, environmental variables, and knowing what it should be looking for, you can both A, do that troubleshooting, and B, help guide it along. So can you guys see this? It might be blurry for, well, practically everybody.
It's a little small, yeah.
This was the first Git commit that I had for this rewrite. So we start off with, we set up our React and TypeScript project scaffold. We added our git ignore. We included the dependencies in our package JSON with React 19, React Router, TypeScript, ESLint, and Vite. We added our Vite configuration, and then it did create a serve.sh script for local static serving, which I thought was interesting because Vite itself does actually have the ability to run a dev server locally. It also, in this first commit, we added our GitHub Actions workflows for the deployment, for automatic deployment to GitHub pages. We added our detailed documentation and our documentation for working with the Meetup API, for working with how to update content in the repo, and how to update the tests. And yeah, so there is a line in here for Netlify, which, you know, ended up not actually using. Our front end implementation, we have pages for the app, for homepage, events page, event detail page, team page, sponsors page, contact page, and a not found page. Then several UI components. And then we also had our sample data files for events, sponsors, and team members, which I basically just went out to LinkedIn, scraped myself, and put it into the files. And then our licenses and scripts. That's the first commit. All done by AI. Now, like I said, it definitely took a lot of back and forth, me with the AI chatbot. But were we done? No. This is the graph outline of how many different Git commits and features that ended up being, you know, what is the finished product today. So without going down the full list, we have things like, you know, fixing TypeScript build errors. We have dark theming. We have our showcase page. We have our PRs for the check gates. We have our SEO and docs, implementing JSON LD. So it definitely took quite a while.
Does the tools like Cursor and the AIs make the Git commits too, or do they just modify the files and you do the Git work yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
If you specify that when it like finishes a task, if you and I don't know if I went into this earlier, maybe I didn't. Cursor has a local directory that you can create in your project called Cursor Rules, and you can put in your documents right there, which can be your defining docs for how you want it to work in the code base, or if there are any rules that you want it to follow, guardrails, etc. You definitely could say every time you finish a feature, make sure that you do a Git commit. However, this is where I also emphasize keeping the human in the loop. You know, you don't want to have Git commits that don't make sense, that aren't quite ready to be committed. So, but you know, your mileage may vary.
I mean, I guess part of the question would be, can it run shell commands and whatnot, or is it simply modifying files?
Yeah, no, it can run function tools to run on the command line. In fact, that is what it ends up doing for a lot of the debugging, running scripts, etc.
you can give it access to your GitHub CLI. So then we'll just go create the GitHub site. and
I
then
was just gonna
upload.
say with the right prompt, we can drop your repo and everything. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Well, people have dropped their databases, production ones.
That's actually one of the reasons, we just had a training about using Cursor for stuff like that. And one of the steps that they said was like, try and let it make commits frequently. Because if they do something like that, like drop like half of the code base and you go try and research that, like, yeah, now I don't know what happened. So
Yeah.
if you can have like small steps, you can say, oh yeah, we've heard that step.
Yeah, and in fact, to go along with that, so yes, frequent, I mean, just like you would on any normal software project, you want to commit regularly. But you also want to keep your chat sessions with the LLM to a minimum, because the more that the AI chat agent has to look at the past, the more it's going to forget. So what my workflow is, I will work one feature in a chat session. When it's done, then I git commit, and then I create a new chat session for that next feature.
Yeah, that was actually what I was going to ask you about your document, because you had one document with the whole specification in there. If you thought about splitting it up and then in different chat sessions, referencing the different documents.
So you,
I don't know if that was.
well,
possible
I'm
or
gonna
not.
get into that a little bit.
Okay.
You can't really save chat sessions, but you can, you can still use your git commits as reference.
Right. Yeah, I've more thought about if you're working on, for example, the page on contacts and the page on upcoming meetings may not be relevant. So keep those as separate documents, and it also helps save costs because you don't have to send that many tokens to ChatGPT or whatever.
Yeah.
Telling the time.
So I do have a part where I talk about that.
I'll wait for that part.
So getting back to the DevOps CI/CD, right? Let's make sure that we have some quality of code. So GitHub now has a service called CodeQL, which is great. If you're using VS Code, it will actually look at the code that the programming language of the code you already have there and ask you if you want to download it. It's great for if you want to test your code locally, but also, that ended up actually being how we analyzed the different lints and tests in the GitHub Actions CI workflow. I will say there is a thing here where I do have merge without waiting for requirements to be met is enabled for me as maintainer. I do not suggest that if you have a workflow where someone else needs to actually review your code. And obviously, I mean, standard practice, but at the same time still needs to be said. So, I know that I can get myself into some trouble. But going back to what you're talking about. So in the documentation, I mentioned the cursor rules. I also used to create a workflow state markdown document and then a project configs markdown document so that the AI agent can keep track of the different tasks and where does it need to go for those configs? What does it need to know about how the project is configured? And also, some people call it a prompt MD, some call it a LLM.txt. It's literally the same thing, but it's basically giving access to what your original project prompt was as a file, so that instead of having to keep your chat session open all the time, you have that chat prompt in a document file so that it can be referenced in the future. And so I have cursor rules down at the bottom. I have rules guides at the top. Cursor, yes.
So just to confirm what you were saying, so you would do things like all that giant design document you put at the beginning, you would stick that in prompt MD, and then when you're asking about, oh, I need to develop this feature or that feature, you simply have that available as a context reference, so that it's just using that for all of, you're not asking it to generate all that at once, you're using it as context as you ask it to generate each piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I would also say, once it finished the feature, I would say, great, this looks good. Now let's review these and make sure we update it. Instead of me doing the updating.
Yeah.
But yeah, so your rules and guides, which in Cursor, you can definitely set links to different documentation websites. It is limited. And so the workaround to that is using Cursor rules and creating your markdown documents for, what are the best practices that you want to make sure that the LLM or the AI agent is following. And so just giving you the rundown here, yes, I ended up having a lot of documentation. Given your mileage may vary here, some people might want to take all that documentation and put it into a separate repo. If you're going to be working with your AI agent, you're going to want to keep that document in that same repository so that AI or the LLM can look and see what is the documentation that you already have. Yes, did anyone say charts or diagrams? No?
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. How many people have worked with UML? Get a show of hands. Okay. So I love the fact that AI is great at creating diagrams and charts. Specifically, I love working with Mermaid.js, which is itself a charting library on the Node.js chain. But wouldn't it be great if you could have your chart to begin with or created after? And how many projects have you wished where you could have a chart to explain how the code works to your teammates or to your product manager? Or how many times have you wished you had that diagram so that you could understand how the code is working? Because I get brain fog. I still think that COVID has some lasting effects that I haven't quite resolved.
Especially now when you might not be writing all of your code. So
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What is all this gobbledygook? Help me understand it in a visual diagram. So, do we understand what the AI assistant is building, right? So, okay. So I mentioned that, didn't have the API key, so let's create a script for Python to scrape the data from Meetup and from YouTube. And so it created this ugly looking diagram, yes, but does it communicate? It does. I wanted it so that, the scraper would parse and clean what was on the website. Once it did that, give me that events.json. And then if it compares it to what I already have in the repo, if it doesn't need to create a new file if what it's got is already there. But, let's have the browser fail back. If the events.json is not working, let's have that API as a last resort. JSON-P, cores. So these all factored into our app services, which then would go into React, and React would render from those local JSON files. Same thing with YouTube data, API v3. We have a YAML file in GitHub Actions that runs that Python script and then publishes it to videos.json, and then that goes into the front end at build time. When it came to SEO, right, I wanted to make sure that I was a new person to RVNUG in 2023. So I wanted to make sure that people could find us. So I said, let's have some SEO. And we already had, Open Graph, Twitter. I was on a project where I learned JSON LD is also a great tool that Google uses for PageRank, which gives you the ability to also add some additional blurbs and sometimes icons into the Google search results. So I wanted to include that in the SEO as well. And then, wanted, like I said, testing and review. So let's have our type safety tests, our linting tests. Let's make sure that our imports and configs are able to work with the build. Never quite got into the smoke checks. That would have been an additional feature. Cypress is a great tool. You can also use things like, I'm drawing a blank. Selenium, thank you. Yes. Selenium, Playwright, Cypress are all great smoke check tools. And there's plenty of others. This is not my specialty, the smoke checks. But making sure that that last step is your human review. And then, so our GitHub Action PR workflow, we do our dev work locally, we commit and push to feature branch, we open our pull requests to main, we have our PR checks run through GitHub Actions, where we, once again, we have our annotations checked, our type safety, our bundle sanity, and do all checks pass? No, fix issues and push. If yes, code review and approvals, and then merge to main. And then what happens after we merge to main? We get our site deployment workflow, swim lane diagram. Now, I love these kinds of diagrams, especially for things like authentication, but these are great diagrams that can, you can have your developer here, you can have your users here, and then you can have your different system steps along the way. We have developer push feature, open PR to GitHub, run our PR checks, pass fail, comes back to GitHub, back to main, etc. So, follow that swim lane. that is the deployment workflow that AI coded, but I wanted to understand what it was doing. And I also wanted to make sure that it was the proper flow. We have nightly data jobs here where, this is a separate YAML script that runs on a nightly basis. It says daily, but it's nightly. And I just wanted to make sure that how does all this stuff add up? Because in my code base, I just have all these YAML files listed, right after the other. Yes, I should learn how they all work, but quick way to understand how they work together is that swim lane diagram.
So how did you, I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yeah.
How did you generate these?
Yeah. So there's a couple different, there's many different ways, right? But basically what I ended up doing for this presentation is saying, using the GitHub using the git commits, create workflow diagrams. And I specifically asked for Mermaid.js. Sometimes because ChatGPT and these LLMs were trained using data that cut off in like 22, 23, sometimes you'll find that the syntax doesn't work right away. So I've got like plugins in my code editor to review the Mermaid chart, or I'll just go to mermaid.live and use the live editor right there. And then, because sometimes there will be syntax errors. But yeah, so for this presentation, I had it review the commit history. Great way to do it is also to say, this feature is complete. Let's create a diagram. Or you could say, this is what I want. Build me a diagram so that I can make sure that it's the correct flow. And then you can add or adjust and then code from there.
I've seen what you just described with the perplexity research function, where it goes like, okay, this is what my workflow is going to be. Put it in a diagram, and it can be any kind of diagram. It could be a swim lane diagram or a flow diagram. Yeah, it already does that. Like, hey, I know I'm working with a human, so let's make something visual so that they can see what's going on.
So that's perplexity research?
Yeah, it's the project version, sorry. So it's the highest tier.
Okay.
So, yeah,
How much does that cost?
that one is 200 a year,
Okay,
so
all right.
beats 200 a month.
By the way, just to, while we're talking about prices, we've been talking about this a lot lately, both in the RVNUG Discord as well as in person. Like, why does it feel like us as developers have to shoulder the cost of using these new tools? And I think, I can't remember if it was you or if it was David that said that, in different fields like construction, you'll have master carpenters who will buy their own tools and bring them to the job site because, they know their tools and they know what their tools can do, and they're willing to spend the extra money to get the result that they want. I think, a lot of organizations, sometimes you might be lucky enough that your organization might already be looking at purchasing licenses. If that's true, great. I've definitely spent, don't tell my fiance, but I've definitely spent probably in the thousands on Let's say at least 1,000.
So I like the parallel that you said with like a master carpenter. The problem, and I don't want to derail the whole presentation, but the problem that we run into is that the company that I work for says like, you can bring your own tools because I don't want your hammer to touch the wood that we have, because the information that is in that wood will leak into your tools. So you can only use the tools that we provide you. So, but yeah, because of the sensitivity of some of the data, you have to be careful.
Plus,
Messaging
people more
is-
efficient. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous.
Messaging is definitely a blurry, foggy area going around these days. In my company, they say, yes, explore these tools, get familiar with them, experiment. But don't put any customer code into those chat sessions. Do not put any, PII or sensitive information, not unless it's been contracted, right? So, and that's for government contracting. But, security locks, I get it,
It's mainly.
So what do you do?
financial data, so, yeah.
right? What do you do?
Can you ask the government for a sweet video card?
If you're in the right organization, yeah. If you're in the AI ML space, you're probably going to be, carte blanche.
MacBook Pro with a 128.
With Unified? Yeah.
That actually is a really good solution. Like for about $3,000 for a used MacBook Pro for 128 gigabytes of memory, you can run a lot of the medium-sized models.
Yeah, I work for a really small company and even we've stood up an AI server. You guys aren't doing that?
So you're actually doing your inference on the.
Yeah.
So
We have to because we're DOD work. We can't-
Okay, that
So-
makes sense. Yeah.
I'm running dual 3090s at home. That's 48 gigs. And that's reasonable.
How much
performance.
memory you said?
48 gigs. And they're used on eBay. Not too bad.
Can you fit the 120 OSS model?
No,
Yeah.
You're probably in the 30 billion.
they're 33 too. It's pretty modest amounts of money to get to that point. It's not, for a company to be complaining about, that's a little ridiculous, actually.
Well, let's dial back a little bit because every project is going to be different, right? And every field is going to be different.
Well, sure, but if you're not going to let people use external tools, it just seems odd.
Right.
Anyway, you're right. We're derailing your discussion too. I'm sorry about that.
Hey, I'm right there with you. Like, I've been experimenting with Olama locally on my work laptop, doing MVCs and toy apps. But having access to a cloud server
Sure.
might be something that your company actually has lots of forms to fill out and approvals need to be made before you can even access those servers. We have lots of AI risk, triggers and matrices. So, and like I said, it depends on what your company does, and how your management, considers the whole sensitivity working with AI.
Isn't that the angle that Microsoft is going for though with Copilot, is that, you get some enterprise subscription with us and we promise it stays in these servers and then they're not as worried about the liability?
Well,
I thought that was their whole argument.
yeah, well, what's also big in the government and DoD is zero trust.
Fair.
So,
You can run it locally then. It's even safer for sure.
yeah, and I don't have all the answers. Like, a lot of the points that you've all have made are valid. I even agree with.
Even if you run it on your own hardware, the models themselves could have malicious training, imperfect training, like it's been trained on a bunch of SQL injection vulnerabilities and,
Yeah, but that,
negate
that's,
the need to-
that's
I mean,
what
that's
comes
what
out
you-
of it. It's a
that's
lot
what you-
easier to control what comes out of it than what's
yeah, I
going
mean,
into
that's what
it.
human in the loop's for, but.
Right.
we've started saying in our office, we treat it like an eager intern.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It's
yeah.
very, very enthusiastic.
I
It's
like
gonna
that.
come up with a wrong answer a lot of times, but it's gonna try really hard.
Well, you can always code review and you can mitigate what's coming out of it for
Yeah.
quality controls. It's
Right.
hard to mitigate what happens, what goes into it. If it's on site, then you have no issues. So,
Is everybody gonna maintain the code review skills if you're not the one writing the code? It's like the saying, if you become a manager, it takes you a year and a half away from the code, and then you have no idea what's happening.
it's easy, just use AI.
Right.
Well, it is a little funny how often it will find a mistake in itself, like
Yeah. Mm.
You got a baby, it's the thing, like you got a baby all the time with AI.
Well, you do have to do for an intern too, though.
That was my question about those diagrams. Did you generate the diagram with a prompt? Did the AI generate the mermaid files for the diagram?
The prompts were generated because I wanted it to generate I wanted it to generate diagram flows from the different GitHub
From the YAML.
actions.
Right.
Yeah.
But so if the AI generates the YAML and then you ask the AI to look at the YAML and generate the diagram, you don't actually know that the diagram reflects what's in the YAML. So you don't actually know that the diagram reflects what actually happens in the pipeline.
Well-
That's what you have the second AI for, to verify.
Ah, yes, yes.
Human in the loop.
Well, no, I was gonna say, to be clear, I think that's still reasonable, because, and it's a lot easier to glance at the diagram and glance at the YAML and be like, yes, this probably matches up, as
Yeah.
opposed to learning the whole GitHub Actions suite of.
My YAML experience is not expert, but it has been enhanced. This whole process, but also being able to, look at the diagram and then look at the YAML.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a lot easier to look at something that's already written and be like, okay, I probably know what this is or does, than to write it from scratch, like, absolutely.
Is probably good enough for production level apps.
It depends what's production in this case.
When you say
Is this DoD nuclear, or is this, that's DOE, or is this, a static website talking about some
Yeah,
talks?
that's a low risk.
All right, so we're getting close on time, so I'm just going to move on to just showing you the finished product. Now, if you have a phone, you can go to rvnug.org.
All of this.
There we go. All right, so, if you've been on it from your phone or if you've been on it from the computer, you've seen it already. We're getting some.
Did you pick the color scheme or was it suggested by AI?
So the previous color scheme was purple, pink, .NET is purple,
Mhm.
right? So I just said, let's keep that color scheme, right? And there were iterations, we have some slowly moving bubble animations. That was an add-in, that was not a first attempt. But a lot of the structure did come from the first go round. But this is all, once again, taking from that research report and prompt and getting these modern, components in our website. And so
That was working on the phone, so I
Upcoming events?
yes,
Say that's,
I might have a cached version. It's okay. We're
While
we're
it's
gonna do a live test.
oh dear. Sean Well is reloading. I have a couple of coworkers who for some odd reason do not like dark mode, blinded by this white screen. Is there a toggle that we can say like, hey, switch between dark mode and light mode for a website? I know it's.
I'm sorry. Are you talking about like when it's reloading here?
No, when the website, when your website is loaded, you have the dark version. Oh, wait, now it's,
No, it's fine.
okay.
So we have dark theme on our website.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure why has this little animated circle, because before it was a sun and a moon.
Okay.
Mobile one is like that.
Yeah, mobiles.
Okay. And once again, I think there might be something, so the tab is still loading, so there may be something
Actually,
going on.
On my MacBook Pro is also correct, so I don't.
Yeah, I think it's probably the fact that I'm on a Teams share
Okay.
trying to load a live website, right?
I don't know. if
Thank
it's
you,
fair.
Microsoft.
I was just gonna say, I don't
Demo
think it's
gods.
fair to blame Microsoft with this.
Yes.
I think there's a rogue AI going on somewhere that's trying to replace something.
I don't know. But all right, so we still have our menu up top. We can click on our different components. Yeah, it's still loading. There's, I don't know, there's something going on.
The
Do you
network
did you
has
lose
been a
internet
little slow
connection
here.
maybe or something?
Yeah, the network has been a little slow here at times, so that may be the reason.
I'm sure it's when I said, hey, everybody go on your phone to our website.
No, it works fine for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's our network, so don't worry about
Okay.
it.
Yeah, it looks like I just lost a connection.
Lockheed's network gets really slow at lunchtime when everybody's checking their stuff at home.
I was just gonna say, everybody's watching YouTube videos.
It looks nice. I like it. From my
Thank
view on
you,
the
thank
phone,
you.
it looks very
Yeah,
nice.
so it works. So we fulfilled the requirement of mobile first and responsive. In fact, actually, let's do this. Let's just go to our local version. There we go. All right, so yeah, so we have our theme toggle up at the top where we can click back and forth, right?
I don't know why anybody would want to know that.
You know, I've wondered that same thing, but you know, there's a lot of VS Studio or VS Studio developers who prefer the white or the light theme versus dark mode.
It's pretty easy now to actually look at in your React app, you can look at the system preferences and just use that as the default. And then they can toggle it and then it'll just cache in cookie, which one you chose. And it uses the system preference. That way, whatever you have on your phone or your device, that's what it goes by.
Yeah.
I see that a lot more now since it's easy.
There is a permission level asked there though, right? So.
Because you have to.
Yeah. But, all right, so, we've got our engaging the developer community. We have our sign up for our newsletter, GitHub, YouTube, Meetup, Discord. And I can also say that these links were not all working at the first go arounds. But we have our upcoming events. We can also go to view our past events, and we can go see the long list of them, which is cool. So if you're like me and don't like going to meetup.com, it's nice. Having said that, this is still I would call it a simple coding because we're not using the Meetup API, we're just using Meetup scrapes. So things like where we say RSVP on Meetup because we're not using the live API to go ahead and have you acknowledge or add your RSVP, right? So, some people might like that, some people might not. I did have it add this calendar button because I thought that was a neat little feature. And we have, once again, we have our footer, our Discord link, which, by the way, now, if you're not on our RVNUG Discord, please feel free.
Did you mention the best part, the cost of hosting this website?
Free.
It's GitHub Pages, it's
Yeah.
free. It's like there's no cost. I mean, I don't know if there is like a traffic limit or something.
Now, I
but-
will say I'm paying the $4 a month for the GitHub Pro subscription, which is doing a lot of the GitHub actions. And it also allows me to use GitHub Copilot on the GitHub website. So I can have GitHub Copilot review my PR. I can have GitHub Copilot be a background agent, and from GitHub UI, I can try coding from there with GitHub Copilot. I don't like that, so I don't. But your mileage may vary.
Do you also do the security checks and stuff like that? I don't know if that's really relevant for a static website, but security review, outdated plugins and stuff like that.
Yeah, so yeah, let's just go to it, right? So if we go to Project Oolong, and by the way, this is public. If you guys find a bug, you're welcome to either create a new issue, or if you wanted to fork and fix it, that's good too.
I see one fork there.
Yeah, look at that. We do have security built in. We have code scanning. We have Dependabot. And we have clear text logging of sensitive information. So, by the way, I've actually reviewed these. What is going on here is we're publishing our channel ID. So it's really not sensitive information, but because
Looks
we're
like a
using a environmental variable, GitHub thinks it might be.
Yeah.
So I can probably do a ignore of this, but yes.
So it has to review of the best practices and stuff like that. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is it. I do have, actually, let me just, how are we doing on time? 8:02.
So you Python scripts, are you running them in real time to scrape the events? Somebody hits the page, or are you storing them?
Those are run nightly, and as well, every time that there is a deploy push to GitHub Pages, it's going to also run through those update scripts. So if I have a new feature, I'll merge that feature in, and then the long list of GitHub actions that I have will run those scripts. And then basically I'm doing a force add to our main repository
Gotcha.
so that it can know to push that data.
You have build injection. What happens if you get blocked by Meetup for scraping traffic?
Then I find a new way to do it.
I think you just answered, but so you do commit the data back to the repository. You don't just use it while you're generating the released project or anything? Okay.
And then, so yes. And since we created this, there's also, there's Windsurf, there's Kiro, there's Gemini CLI, there's Codex, Claude Code, Warp Terminal, which if you're not ready to pull the trigger on doing something like Claude Code, try Warp Terminal. It's very similar, but also allows you to choose different AI models, so you're not tied to Claude. Some of these, GitHub Spark, haven't tried that out. And then, resources that I used in doing my own research, Google, Bing, Perplexity. I'm definitely a fan of that. I listen to Latent Space podcast. Also, Matt Wolf and Matt Berman on YouTube are great resources for the latest AI. And I love using Edge, not because it's Microsoft, but because I get to do the split screen feature. You know, you might like that, you might not. Both Windows and Mac do have the ability to do your Windows where it'll like do smart splits, but I just like staying all in the browser. And then I have a little comparison here on Warp AI terminal versus Claude Code. I don't know if you can read that.
Comet is the browser that
Yeah.
Perplexity is bringing.
Yeah, I was curious on your common experience.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I haven't really gotten full-fledged into it yet. And then I wanted to show you the feature flag, but you know, we're at time, so it's okay. And that's it. Thank you. So yes, I will be trying to get these posted into a format that can be viewed on GitHub. And we should be putting the YouTube video up after we've edited all of the oddities. Hopefully my ums and ahs.
No, we leave those in.
Total.
Were you counting?
derailment of your.
I'll go back and count.
All right. So Jeff and I met at Toastmasters down in Blacksburg. So we used to have to count each other's ums and ahs. Do we have time for questions, or do we want to just make any last announcements?
I think there was some wondering if you still did Toastmasters.
I'll talk to that later.
I always thought about doing that. I just can't ever find the time. Do they still have it in this area?
Blacksburg does.
Yeah, Blacksburg. Well, Blacksburg does it. They still do it Thursdays at lunch.
Thursdays at noon, yeah.
Thursdays at noon. It's a hybrid approach, so you can do it remotely or in person at the Virginia Tech CRC.
I can't believe they don't have anything like that in Roanoke.
I think they do.
I bet you they do.
Never done,
In fact-
but I've looked into it.
I think doesn't Angela, doesn't she do Toastmasters up here as well?
I'm not sure. I think she's collaborated a few times, but yeah, I don't know if she does it regularly.
Yeah. So that's it. Thank you very much.
I love all these coding tools. They save me, all the AI, it saves me at least like 10 hours of coding a week. And, it only takes me about 30 hours of researching on keeping up with the AI. But I think it's valuable and have to keep up with it, because if you're a developer and don't know the AI tools, I'm just waiting for it to still save me time. I know it's going to come soon.
Just about the time that the flying cars come, right?
Yeah, well, that too.
Sure. You get the teleporters?
The what?
The teleporters?
Yeah.
I want the flying cars. I think that'd be a better experience.
Have you seen people drive around
People
here?
can't drive on roads, so I don't.
I'm worried about how people will maintain them, and you have these cars crashing into your yard.
Cars fall off.
Okay, in 2 weeks and a couple days, we have our Copy and Code. Come check that out. What was the date again?
September 20th.
20th. Okay, yeah, that's about right. So come check that out. Next month, we have Kevin Griffin.
Yeah.
Kevin Griffin coming. Kevin Griffin is, he's coming from Virginia Beach. Fantastic speaker. Definitely come check that out. We're having that here again. And then in November, we're going to be back to Blacksburg, Michael Irvin. is going to continue his talk. So that's going to be.
It's gonna
great
be
to see.
probably a workshop.
Well, that's a workshop. That's right. Yeah, so that'll be really good. That's an AI workshop, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just gonna be, something you follow along with on your computer. It's-
Okay. Yeah, I like workshops. I like hands-on. So that's going to be great. So, but as of right now, we're going to go to Mac and Bob's, and anybody want to join us? Sorry, this way. Yes, don't do it that way. This way, Mac and Bob's. Come check it out. Hang out with us. Have a drink and hors d'oeuvres, and come hang out. All right. Thanks for coming, everybody.